F1 News, Sebastian Vettel blasts Lewis Hamilton, Daniel Ricciardo fumes, Mercedes worry Vettel blasts Hamilton. Sebastian Vettel blasted Lewis Hamilton for taking his foot off the gas during the Australian Grand Prix. Hamilton started the race on pole position but was overtaken by Mercedes teammate Valtteri Bottas on the opening corner. The Finn then maintained his lead for remaining 58 laps to secure his first win since Abu Dhabi in 2017. But for Hamilton, questions were raised as to why he finished 21 seconds behind his teammate, despite being in a similar car. And Vettel, who was beaten to third place by Max Verstappen, thinks Hamilton stopped trying his best after losing his pole. "I don't know what Lewis was doing," said Vettel. "I think he was probably bored and not happy because he lost the start. I think it's not the first race where he's doing something just to go round, he was just playing at that point." Ricciardo fumes. Daniel Ricciardo got off to a nightmare start to the F1 season as he was forced to retire on his debut for Renault at the Australian Grand Prix, and he then told a reporter to shut the F up. Ricciardo was trying to explain why he was forced to retire in an interview with Ziggo Sport before he stopped to blast another reporter. "I didn't intend to go on the grass in the first place, but I had a better start than Sergio Perez. I can't concentrate, she's talking too loud," he said, before turning to the BBC 5 Live broadcaster. "Shut the F up." Mercedes statement. Lewis Hamilton finished second at the Australian Grand Prix, and Mercedes have released a statement revealing why he was well off the pace. Valtteri Bottas was 21 seconds ahead of his teammate, but the Silver Arrows confirmed Hamilton suffered damage to his car. Update: we have discovered damage to Lewis' floor in the area just in front of the left rear tire, Mercedes tweeted. "There is a chunk of the floor missing, but we are not 100% sure why yet." Next news: conclusions from the Australian Grand Prix. The long-awaited season opener served up a number of surprises and ripped up the script that was expected after winter testing. It's not only advantage Mercedes but also advantage Valtteri Bottas. Max Verstappen shows that Red Bull are contenders, while Ferrari baffled us and themselves by being just plain slow. Resurgent Bottas has a Rosberg moment. Valtteri Bottas, after stringing together a brilliant lap in Q3, was visibly upset to be pipped at the post by Lewis Hamilton in qualifying. The creeping doubts would have troubled the Finn, who failed to win a race in 2018, who struggled to match Hamilton throughout last season, and who some analysts have described as dead man walking with Esteban Ocon waiting in the wings. But as the lights went out in Melbourne, a new Bottas emerged. Or as Toto Wolff said after the race, "Valtteri worked really hard in the off-season and said I'm back." Pointing towards his head, Bottas said, "I'm stronger up here," after sweeping aside all comers in Australia, including Hamilton. It was a thoroughly dominant display, reminiscent of Hamilton at his best. His start was razor sharp, and from then on he had the pace to control proceedings from the front. The performance also had echoes of Nico Rosberg's start to the 2016 season. Back then Hamilton had pole, too, yet it was Rosberg who went on to claim victory to set the tone in what was his title-winning campaign. It's too early to draw a direct comparison between Bottas and Rosberg, but the current Mercedes star will no doubt draw inspiration from the manner in which the German took the fight to Hamilton 3 years ago. Max's power of dreams installs Red Bull as challengers. Red Bull's weekend was compromised when Pierre Gasly failed to get out of Q1 due to the team's strategic error. Max Verstappen, though, split the Ferraris to start fourth, and the young Dutchman completed the move of the race to overtake Sebastian Vettel to claim the last step on the podium. With Mercedes claiming a 1-2, albeit led by Bottas, it is tempting to conclude that the competitive order is unchanged with the silver arrows leading the way. Verstappen, but for an off late in the race, could well have slipped past Hamilton to claim P2. The Red Bull chassis is again excellent, and if Honda can extract a few more horsepower in qualifying, the Mercedes party mode could well and truly be over. Why are we so slow? Ferrari won the phony war of testing, prompting universal admiration from analysts for the SF90's balance and poise. But a distant 4th and 5th for Vettel and Charles Leclerc, on debut, represents a poor return for the Scuderia, whose new boss Massia Binotto finds himself immediately under pressure. "We don't know," was the answer that Vettel's race engineer gave to his driver's question of why are we so slow? One answer to this question is that Ferrari's in-wash aero philosophy creates a consistent spread of downforce, but less overall downforce. On the evidence of Australia, this could indeed be the case, while Mercedes' aggressive outwash approach creates more intense downforce but leaves the car more on edge. Fastest lap change proves the point. The new rule, which provides for a point to the driver that sets the fastest lap within the top 10, was met with mixed feelings ahead of the season opener. However, the drivers were eager to win a point on offer and, in the closing stages in Australia, aggressively pursued purple laps. The added dynamic seems to be an overall positive addition to the regulations. How long before a point is awarded for pole position? It was a day to remember for Kevin Magnussen. Fired an early warning shot for Haas with an excellent 6th place, to bury the ghosts of last year's failure. The Dane also had the pleasure of keeping rival Nico Hülkenberg at bay on track. Kimi Räikkönen, whose P8 was a fantastic result on his return to the Sauber team now rebranded as Alfa Romeo, and Lance Stroll pounced to claim 9th on his debut with Racing Point by capitalizing on the Antonio Giovinazzi train that held up the likes of Stroll's teammate Sergio Perez. Toro Rosso's Daniil Kvyat, on his latest return to the sport, grabbed the final point in a headline-grabbing way as he held off the second Red Bull. Lando Norris may have missed out on the points, but he impressed both in qualifying and with his racecraft, notably sending one up the inside of Giovinazzi. It was a day to forget for Daniel Ricciardo, as his Renault debut will live long in the memory for all the wrong reasons. The Australian, at his home race, missed out on Q3 and was out-qualified by his teammate. At the start, Ricciardo mounted the grass, losing his front wing in the process, and later retired after an anonymous race. Pierre Gasly, who was 11th, put in a performance that was just not good enough given that his teammate finished on the podium. Renault as the French outfit again struggled relative to Haas. Not only were the American team comfortably ahead, but the Renault power unit and Carlos Sainz's McLaren went boom. What comes next? Ferrari did not have the fastest car in Australia. But we won't know more until Bahrain, as Ferrari's woes could well have been specific to Melbourne. The men from Maranello tend to go well at Sakir, but they will travel to the Middle East firmly on the back foot. We can also expect a resounding response from Hamilton after his thrashing, while Gasly will need to get close to Verstappen to avoid what could quite quickly become a year of pain for the young Frenchman. Next news: Vettel feels Hamilton was playing around. Sebastian Vettel reckons the only reason he even got close to Lewis Hamilton during the Australian GP was because the board driver was playing around. Last year's title protagonists, both Hamilton and Vettel had a Sunday to forget in Melbourne. While they started first and third on the grid, neither had the pace to challenge for the win. Hamilton was overtaken by Valtteri Bottas into the first corner and spent the entire afternoon running second as he complained about his tires and lost over 20s to his teammate. As for Vettel, he looked to have closed the gap to Hamilton as the pit stops played out, only to slowly but surely drop off before he was passed by the Red Bull of Max Verstappen. Vettel reckons given his own balance issues, the only reason he even got close to Hamilton at all was because the Brit was bored. "I don't know what Lewis was doing," Vettel said after the Grand Prix. "I think he was probably bored and not happy because he lost the start. I think it's not the first race where he's doing something just to go around, he was just playing at that point. I was told also on the radio that he's complaining about his tires, but I think he made it quite safely to the end. Maybe he wasn't too happy driving from that point onwards." Bottas leads the championship after round 1 with 26 points, Hamilton is second with 18 while Vettel is fourth with 12 on the board. Next news, Ricciardo will have to get a harder skin. Daniel Ricciardo will need to develop a harder skin and more patience if he wants to triumph in this year's midfield battle, says Cyril Abiteboul. Having swapped Red Bull for Renault in the off-season, Ricciardo is expecting a season spent battling in the midfield while his new team chases fourth place in the Constructors' Championship. And that's exactly what he got at the season-opening Australian Grand Prix. The Aussie qualified P12 for his home race and immediately tried to make up positions at the start. He attempted a pass around the outside of Sergio Perez only to bounce along the grass, hit a gutter, and lose his front wing. His Renault boss Abiteboul feels a less impatience is needed. It's not that he underestimated it, but as a midfield team we do not operate in the same way as a top team, he told France's Auto Hebdo. Maybe he will have to get a harder skin and some more patience at the start. I am absolutely not panicked. He is an intelligent boy. In Bahrain we will have a more traditional circuit with more room at the sides. Ricciardo would later retire from the Grand Prix, parking his RS19 in the Renault garage as a result of the earlier damage. Thank you for watching the video. Be sure to share and subscribe to your channel to get the latest sports news around the world. Wished health and success. Goodbye.